Wetzel County meeting of the Wetzel County Board of Education is called to order. We'll begin with the opening Pledge of Allegiance and Invocation. Ms. Connor will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll share the Invocation. Anyone not wishing to participate may stay seated.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we just ask for your continued strength and guidance and wisdom as we make decisions that affect Wetzel County schools. We know that our students are our primary care, and we pray that you would give us just the best guidance and wisdom necessary to make prudent and wise decisions on their behalf. And we ask all this through thy Son's name. Amen. First item on our agenda this evening are delegations, but I do not believe there are any. Thank you, Ms. JoBeth. Next item on the agenda then is superintendent's information. Anything new for us that you want to share?
President Price, not this evening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Then the next item on our agenda tonight are under superintendent's recommendations are the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of May 23rd and the special meeting of May 23rd. Is there a motion?
I so move.
It has been moved to accept the minutes from those two meetings. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Has been moved and properly seconded. Are there any questions or comments relating to those minutes? Not hearing any. All in favor of accepting those minutes say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda are personnel matters. Again, board members, you've received those in your packets. Is there a motion relating to those personnel matters?
Mr. President, I move for approval of superintendent's recommendations as outlined under personnel matters.
It has been moved to accept those recommendations from the superintendent under personnel matters. Is there a second?
I second.
Has been moved and properly seconded. Are there any questions concerning personnel matters that would require executive session this evening? Not hearing any. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the ratification of superintendent's recommendation. Is this still a consideration for us this evening, Ms. Wells?
Yes, sir, it is.
It's a consideration of possible action on superintendent's recommendation of professional employees' unpaid suspension be ratified by the board. That requires the executive session because it is personnel matter. And so I would move that we go into executive session.
And I will second that.
Has been moved and properly seconded to go into executive session to discuss this personnel matter. Any questions on the motion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will be going into executive session at 6:03. Let the record reflect that we are out of executive session at 6:07. We have returned back to public session. Again, now, Mrs. Wells, is there a formal request of the board as it relates to the agenda item?
Yes, President Price, I recommend for the ratification of John W. Smith, former employee of Wetzel County Schools, paid and unpaid suspension.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation on this matter.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Has been moved and properly seconded to accept the recommendation. Are there any further questions we need to return to executive session on? Not hearing any, all in favor of approving that recommendation, say aye. Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item on our agenda are routine matters. A couple of pretty simple things there, but that is a slight conflict of interest in level C for me. So I will recuse on that matter just for full disclosure. So let the record reflect that I am recusing based on item C, but rather than sever it, we'll just let the remaining board vote on all of the routine matters. Mr. Yeck, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Under routine matters, you can see the three items A, B, and C. Request to attend Wetzel County Schools, release from Wetzel County Schools, and the out-of-state trip involving Peyton City High School. Is there a motion?
I move for the approval of the superintendent's recommendation as outlined under routine matters.
Second. Been properly moved and seconded to approve routine matters. Are there any questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
You love to stay in heat out there anymore.
Yeah.
Next item on our agenda is the treasurer's report. Mr. Lancaster.
There are 4 items that we need to discuss tonight. Item A, I'm asking for approval for payment of bills for the month of May, which you already received in your packet. Item B, I'm asking for approval for transfers and increases in the budget, which I'd like to go over briefly.
Absolutely.
You have those in front of you. The first is a budget supplement of $2,974,160.29. Let me explain what you're seeing here. And you see this, not quite that high, but you'll see this every June because mainly excess tax is collected in excess of the budget. This is supplementing the taxes above our budgeted amount, bringing it to the board now for areas of expenditure, areas we've needed, areas that we don't need, becomes part of the carryover balance, and we'll rebudget that at a later date. So you'll see the excess taxes there, your first couple of items, $495,000 and some change from the regular levy, $869,000 from the excess levy. I'm not going to go over all the items here, but I'll point out a few of them. The hydro plant, the pilot agreement we have with them, the payments in lieu of taxes, there's $282,000, $373, basically $282,000. I'm rounding for the purpose of moving through this. A little bit of the mineral leases, not much there. Some miscellaneous revenue, which includes several things, such as one of the main ones in that is when RESA closed down, they still had some monies left over up in Wheeling, and we finally closed that out. It was in Ohio County Schools, so that's supplementing it there. The P-card rebate, so far we've received about $21,000 for the first 3 quarters in a rebate through our P-card program. It is a lot of work. There are a lot of headaches with it, mainly in my office. People that use it probably don't see that because it is convenient. But there's a lot of things getting it to work with Weavis that we're still struggling with. But the rebate helps to make it worthwhile. Our E-rate program, $142,000 there. We sold through an auction a couple of buses, and those items are on here, the $26,000 we've received there. And the indirect costs, I want to point out, I'm submitting $800,000. That's higher than normal for indirect costs. Anytime we have federal programs, we're allowed to charge a certain percentage for things, for indirect costs, such as my time, for example. I don't get that money, but I'm not paid out of that grant, but there's a lot of work that goes on with my time. The electricity we use, the administrators that go over those grants. So the reason it's so high is you're allowed to charge a higher rate for these ESSER funds. And so we planned on this. If you remember, we went back and said, okay, when we're trying to do all these projects, for example, with our carryover, we wanted to do a roofing project at New Martinsville School. I said we would supplement at a later time an indirect cost of $800,000 to cover the cost of that roof. And the roof luckily came in a little lower than that, but I'm going ahead and supplementing our indirect costs from that those ESSER funds. That's going to be supplemented into the budget. We're doing the roofing project. We're able to get a head start on Valley High School's roof, on the gym roof there that we've been having some issues with. So we're moving along really well with that. But that's the main purpose of that first page and the most of this supplement. There are some smaller grants on there. This teacher leadership framework that Mr. Wells has talked about for a long time. They've given some local help with that, with an additional $2,000 at the state level, and then followed up with another $2,000 there to help us get that in place. Child nutrition supply chain assistance, a big hot topic right now with, they're helping us out at the state level with a little bit of extra money there, $55,253 additional help there for the cost of food, which we'll use next year. A math grant, we had a few people that got it. We already brought one math grant to the county, but there's some teachers that have applied and have received some additional help with some math grants in this county, which is a good thing. And we also have competency-based learning at Magnolia High School, a $10,000 grant through the state that we've received for that program. And finally, we talked about ESSER funds. There was also some special ed ESSER funds that's specifically for that through the IDEA programs. There's $142,000 through the IDEA funds, and there's another $16,000 that's for school age, another $16,000 for the preschool IDEA. So that will be used towards some salaries next year that we talked about needing. That's your budget supplement. Your transfers. Again, a large number in transfers here. You will see in excess of $3 million in budget transfers, and there's a logical explanation for that, which I'm going to explain. The first section, most of these pages, are routine special education transfers that you see every time this year, just to align up the areas of expenditures with the budget. But the main one is on the last page. You'll see unrestricted budget transfers. I'm going to explain that. Again, we're talking ESSER tonight, that ARP ESSER money. We knew all along that we were going to pay 62 teacher salaries out of that ESSER funds. By doing that, that was going to free up some funds, be able to do an HVAC project, be able to do an elevator project, be able to do a sprinkler project, and be able to do a gymatorium project. So in order to free up those funds, I've already budgeted in salaries, but we knew we wouldn't be needing them there. So this is the transfer I'm talking about. I'm moving money from salary line items for those 62 teachers, temporarily just this year, into the project line item areas of expenditures for architects and contractors. So that's taking care of that. So that is item B. I'm flying through this. Anybody have any questions about A or B? Item C, appointment of Audit Procurement Committee to select an outside CPA firm for auditing services. This is just something we have to do. We have to bid out our auditing services. I think Mr. Yeager has served on in the past, but you're not going to be able to do it this year.
4 years. So.
Yep, you're not going to be able to do it this year because it will roll over into next year, and we'll miss you. But we have the requirement to do this is we have to have an audit committee. One sentence that I'm going to read from this: the committee shall have at least 3 members, but not more than 5, with at least 1 member from the entity's governing body. And 1 member being an entity appointee with a working knowledge of the accounting system utilized. This is old hat to us. I've done this every 2 years for 3 years since I've been here for 20 years. The committee I'm proposing would be myself, of course, the accountant in my office, Matt Duke, and I would need a volunteer from one of you two if you could help serve on that. And really, there's not much work to it.
There isn't any.
Yeah, we'll do the
Mr.
labor. You'll
Lancaster
have
does
to.
all the work.
Yeah.
You're supposed to say it's really, really hard, Mr.
Yes, but it's required to have somebody to serve on it, and if we're doing something wrong, you certainly can tell us what we're doing wrong.
I'll volunteer, Mr. Price.
Thank you.
Whomever I'm supposed to.
You can't volunteer me because I'm gone.
Everybody volunteers you to be on call for every meeting. To tell us what we're doing.
It's gotta be one of you two.
No, he said I'll
He's
volunteer.
volunteered. Oh, he's selling that.
Yeah.
I didn't know who was gonna accept.
No, we don't have to motion on that, we're good.
Yeah, that doesn't require a motion, you're right. And then the final item, every year at this time, I'm also getting approval to designate any remaining balances for these local unrestricted projects. And there are several of them there. Some of them won't have balances by the time the year's over, but just to cover ourselves, if we don't do this now, things we've set aside, for example, the HVAC project. It's gonna be unspent on June 30th, some of that project. If we don't designate it now, it becomes part of the carryover, and then we just have to do it again. But these are set aside in local projects. If we designate it now, it doesn't become part of the carryover, and you don't want that. You want that to be set aside in the project that we've already designated them for.
These are decisions that have already been made, and
Correct.
that needs to be set aside.
Correct. It's just a requirement to get that designated on my financial statements as projects already spoken for. I know that's a lot, but that is all that I have. I need, I guess, action on items A, B, and D. I guess it wouldn't hurt to have an action on item C, but I don't know if it's necessary.
Okay, we can action on the whole.
Sure.
On the whole. Board members, any questions?
I move that the treasurer's report be approved.
Okay, that has been moved to accept the treasurer's report.
I'll second.
Has been moved and properly seconded. Are there any questions as it relates to that report? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lancaster, for your work on that. Next item on our agenda is second reading of policy GDBA. And board members, if you noticed, there were some questions and discussion on first reading that generated some thought of how maybe some other things could be adjusted on this policy. And so there had been some revisions being suggested before you. So if you're looking at your packet sheet, you might have noticed that it is slightly different than first reading. And so you've got it, and make sure you're looking at that, because they are slightly different. They're now bringing to us a request for amendments, is what I'm going to call it. Because the policy was passed one way under first reading, we will have to go back and line item amend anything that the recommendations that are being made, if we accept that, or the board at its pleasure can make any amendment relating to any of these things on this policy. So is that clear to everyone what I'm saying there? Okay. So I don't know any better way because this policy covers so many areas as a supplemental salary policy for a variety of areas of employment. I'm going to suggest we just go one by one down the policy, and if you've got questions or amendments relating to each line as we go, we'll do it that way. I don't know any other way to do it and keep clarity. And so that without anybody, is that okay with everybody? If somebody's got a better idea, I'd be glad to accept that. So on the original first reading policy, unchanged was executive secretary supplement. I have a motion I'd like to make on that line. I'll make my argument and then I'll make my motion. The executive secretary works for Mrs. Welch. She's the superintendent's executive secretary. But let's be honest, she does, and I say she but that role, that's a better way to say that. That role also does things for us. That role ends up doing things for us, copying and various extra work that the superintendent doesn't necessarily ask that role to perform, but the board asks that role to perform. I would like to make a simple amendment maybe to that. I'd like to see us and if somebody has it, but I'd like to amend that. My motion is to amend the executive secretary supplement from 1,000 to 1,200. That's my motion. I would move that we move the executive secretary supplement from 1,000 to 1,200.
I will second.
That has been moved and properly seconded. Are there any questions about the motion? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So that is first amendment on this sheet going towards second reading of this policy. Any questions about the second line of the policy? The other secretarial, not hearing any. How about the financial secretary and faculty senate issue on the policy? Okay, not hearing any questions. Coordinator of services, any questions? Not hearing any. Accounts payable supervisor, any questions about that aspect of the policy? Not hearing any. Okay, so there was a change, and these were made on first reading, of the supervisor of maintenance that was revised to just be called maintenance supervisor. I would ask a question about that. And my question was this number on the policy was what you asked us for the first time? In the original, back in, what was that, November? Something like that. And at that time, you were asking for us to approve that flat. But under this policy, it actually is not flat. They'd actually be getting more than that, because they're 261s.
Correct.
So I just want the board to be aware. I'm not necessarily saying I disagree with that. I'm just making sure that the board is aware, because of the way policy works, it's based on a 200-day employment. So you do the math, and so that would actually be, for the extra 61 days, you would get your daily rate of that 20,000. So it's more than 20,000 that they would be getting. And I'm not telling you right now whether I agree or disagree with that. I just want to make sure the board understands that, because the way the policy states, it's under a 200-day contract that this policy is based on. Anybody who works any days over 200, then it's based on daily rates, so they will actually make more than what's on the page. And by the way, that's true for everybody on the page that works more than 200 days, just for clarity's sake. And so I was just, and that's why I wanted clarity. Was this an attempt to go back to the original, because I would have to adjust these numbers to make that happen? Or was this, no, we want it to be this, understanding that it's based on a 200-day schedule? Is that, so that's what we are asking for. That is what we are asking. Okay, and that's, right, if we're gonna vote on things, we gotta make sure we understand what we're voting on.
To whom does that apply?
So you mean as far as based on a
200 to 260?
So can you tell me, can somebody, Mr. Cook or Mr. Lancaster, can you just run the list? Don't tell me names, because that's personnel, we don't want to go down that road. These are job descriptions.
Right.
Go down through that job description and tell me which ones of those jobs and how many days they work in our fiscal calendar.
I think I can, and people can maybe help if I'm wrong. Executive secretary is 261. Secretary 1, 2, or 3, it varies. It depends on, like some school secretaries are 220. So the amount would be different. Some of those secretaries in this building are 261, and they would fall under these categories as well. Same thing with the school financial secretary. No, they're all 220, I believe. The financial side of it.
Are there no longer any 210s?
I think there might be a 210.
No, she left.
She's
left?
retired.
Thank
She
you.
retired in December, so they're all
Thank you.
220 now.
Okay.
So that varies depending on the position held. School secretaries are 220, but other secretaries are 261. Coordinator of services, those would be 261s. Accounts payable supervisor, 261s. Maintenance supervisor, 261. Transportation supervisor, 261. General maintenance, 261. Mechanic, 261. Chief mechanic, 261. I guess that's your list. That applies mostly to
So the
261.
vast majority of them are 261s
That's
and
correct.
240s.
That's correct. 220.
220, sorry, 220.
And if you want to do the math, you take that number, you divide it by 200, that gives you your daily rate, you multiply it by the contract period. So if it's a 261-day person, you take that amount, you divide it by 200, multiply it by 261, and you get your annual supplement.
That detail does not have to be in the policy then, right?
At the very bottom, there's a sentence, I'm sorry, at the top, the following annual supplements are based on a 200-day work schedule. Everything we pay in our WEVA system is based on a 200-day schedule. So if you look at, you start with a pay of a 261-day person, it's a teacher salary, for example. If it's a 240-day teacher, it's put in there and then you increase the contract day. So what goes in the system is the 200-day amount. That's why it's, and when you have different contracts in the same section, you have to do something like that.
Otherwise, you'd have people working extended contracts for nothing, just 200 days.
Right, I understand that. I didn't know whether that you had to specify,
Now, I think this covers.
okay.
And that's why we did that, because if you remember back in November, and I'll own that, I'm the one that kind of pushed to get this amended back to where it just says 200, because that's how the WEVA system works, and it just, not that Mr. Lancaster's office couldn't figure it out, but it just keeps it simple enough to just, it's always that way, and the formulas work, and you move forward all the time without him having to look at every policy every time something comes up and go, well, that one says 200, well, but this one says 261, and this one says 220, and so forth. That's the reason for that. So are there any questions then concerning, we were down to maintenance supervisor part of this policy? Is I've given you some clarity just to make sure we understood what page we're on. Okay, I'm not hearing any other questions. Transportation supervisor, any questions there on that job? If you notice, then there was an addition that they're asking us to amend tonight. We had brought up within this that a question arose that it was there any, why wasn't maintenance included when we had mechanics included? Why wasn't maintenance included in the policy? We couldn't discuss that technically because it wasn't on the paper, so we asked them to put it on paper so we could come back and discuss it. So now it's on this. So are there first any questions about the addition of that portion of the policy?
To whom does that apply?
The general maintenance. And anybody that has general maintenance certifications.
So that's the maintenance staff, basically? Without Mr. Doty?
No, with Mr. Doty.
Because
Wait a minute.
try to refrain from using names. Just refer to the job.
Okay.
So you got to remember, and let me, if I can, and I'll try to give some clarity here. You got to remember that these are supplements for additional roles that these folks are performing besides their official classification that they're under. So he's not just, or they aren't just doing the job that they're getting the supplement for. They also have roles and responsibilities under their regular employment that they're still fulfilling. These are supplements to the regular role that they are employed for. And so if somebody's employed under general maintenance, they get the general maintenance supplement. And if they are also employed as the maintenance supervisor, they get the maintenance supervisor supplement. Whatever supplement on this page they qualify for, they get, irregardless. And so, and just like, if, not to jump ahead, but if you're down to the ASE certifications, if they get all of them, then they get every single one of those supplements that are listed there. It's the same principle. So anything they qualify for within their job description, they would get as it relates to this supplement. It's not a like pick the highest one and you get that one. It's whatever you qualify for. If that helps. And again, I'm not trying to hedge it or tell you one way or the other what to think about it. I'm just trying to give you clarity as to the policy.
But you're saying that a person can, to my feeble mind here, a person can qualify under two different categories here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They could absolutely qualify under more than one category. And not just in those roles that, those two. It could be a secretarial role as well. It could fall under the same caption.
Mr. Kessler, the chief mechanic could earn all of those certifications.
So if the chief, so a mechanic would get the initial supplement, but if he earned those ASE certifications, he would also, or she would also get all of those other supplements. If the chief mechanic is ASE certified in all of those, she would get the chief mechanic and all the others.
Would the chief mechanic also get the mechanic?
Yes.
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 Okay, that's,
Yeah. Cause the job is
Yes.
mechanic,
that's, yes.
the supplemented role is chief mechanic, and then to encourage them to get all the certifications possible, we've added supplements for that purpose, cause we've decided in the past, cause this has been part of the policy for a while, that the more educated those individuals are in their field, the better off we are. And so this is to encourage them to go and get those certifications. So,
I think we need to look back at also that we encouraged way back to try to start cutting out some administrators or whatever, and we made a couple of those positions.
it is correct. In essence, even if we approved everything on this page, if you're talking about a financial, it's a financial wash. When you're talking about what you were originally paying a single administrator who was fulfilling multiple of these roles, what you were financially paying out, what you're gonna pay here is practically, I mean, obviously there's some could be, but it's practically a financial wash when it comes to that. That these increases are covered by what you saved by removing that one administrative job from a pure financial numbers standpoint. If that was your question.
That's what I was.
Yep. Or your comment. Yep.
And this is like any other policy, it's not set in stone, it can be.
It is set in stone until a future board and decides that they want to review. You can review policy. We could come. I'm not recommending this. We could come back next meeting with a revision of any policy on our books. Policies are meant to be fluid from the standpoint of as times and situations change, and so that's why we go through reviews of them. So you could absolutely, any board could come back and revisit any single policy in the manual at any time it desires, and review those things.
And this
and make amendments.
policy is gonna be tonight on which reading?
This would be second reading. We'll make the amendments and we will approve this policy one way or the other with all the amendments that we make tonight. And it will be the policy of Wetzel County Schools. If on that second reading it's approved, it will become the new policy for Wetzel County Schools.
Okay, I was just trying to clarify that
Yeah.
you can make changes to
Yeah.
it between first and second reading.
Yes, you absolutely, that is the time to make amendments, is when you come into second reading, Yes.
And the other thing that I would need clarification on would be the effective date of the policy, because it affects.
And we'll make sure that's part of the motion when, thank you, Mr. Langston, we'll make sure that's part of the motion when we get there. Okay, so any more questions about those maintenance supervisor role, transportation supervisor role? No more, okay. And then that is an addition, we talked about that, general maintenance, that was an addition that we had to bring back to an agenda. So I'm gonna make the motion to accept this amendment for general maintenance to this policy. I move to accept their recommendation on that.
And I will second that.
It has been moved and properly seconded to accept that amendment of this policy. Any questions about that motion? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That amendment is approved. If you notice then, the mechanic, that role was changed from the original, there's a request to change that from first reading, to amend that, and have it now to stand as the immediate supplement would be 5,000, and with the ability to earn 7,000 extra if they get all the certifications available to them. So they have an opportunity to earn a $12,000 under a 200-day contract scenario worth of supplements if they would get all those certifications under this policy. So are there any questions about the line item of mechanic? Not hearing any, I would move that we accept the amended version that has been provided for us tonight in relationship to first reading of that line now saying 5,000 under mechanic.
I'll second that.
Has been moved and properly seconded. Again, any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is amended. Chief mechanic, there was no change from first reading being requested. And any questions about that? And I do not believe there were any questions about, or are there any questions about the certification area? And I don't think there were any.
The only question I have is not about the certifications, but including, I don't know, Mr. Cook, if you can answer this or not, or Mr. Doty, for the maintenance personnel. If the state, and I don't know, I've been out of it for a while, does the state still recognize a master plumber or a master electrician?
I would assume.
I would like to amend the policy that if they, and what other classifications would there be?
It just depends on what you look at. Like when you go to HVAC technician, you have a residential classification, you have a apprentice classification, and then you have a universal, which is basically the master part of that class. So certain licenses have different ways that they categorize it, whether it's apprentice, journeyman, master, or apprentice, residential, universal. But
Everyone hires in is a journeyman, correct?
electrician-wise, yes.
Electrician.
Yes, we have a couple.
So if they would become a master,
we have 2 masters.
I would make an amendment that if anyone gains a master's certification in any area that they receive $1,000 for that.
So, master certification in any. So the motion is that if any of our general maintenance staff receives a master's
Master.
certification in their area,
Or a master's license.
Okay.
It could be his.
that they receive the same $1,000 supplement that we see otherwise. Am I understanding the motion correctly? Did I repeat it correctly, Mr. Yeager?
Yes.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Has been moved and properly seconded. Are there any questions about that motion? Go ahead.
Are there any other statements beside master of a certain?
So like I said, on your HVAC, the master's class is technically called universal. So you have your apprentice, you have your residential, and you have universal. Universal is your highest class in your HVAC.
I'm just trying to get into here any possibilities, like,
And then like sewer plant operators, you have a class 1, you have a class 1S, you have an operator, but we don't have any plants big enough to actually be considered to have an actual class 1 operator with, because all of ours are small package plants, so it's just gonna be a basic class 1 license for the sewer plant.
Yeah, that wouldn't be part of that. But
So
all of our
basically-
maintenance men are electricians.
You're
They
gonna
have
look
to be
at
licensed
electricians,
as
plumbers, and
a
HVAC
journeyman
techs is which one it is.
electrician. If they become a master electrician, which requires them working a certain number of years and so forth, is there a test even?
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Yes, and then,
Don't they have to work in a plant
They've changed that, it goes with hours now.
Yes.
So depending on how many hours you have.
So they can actually get
Yes,
that.
so anybody has the opportunity now. Basically, it'd just probably be an application that they'd have to come and somebody would have to sign off saying that they've got, 10 years here would be enough hours or whatever the actual hours is to take the opportunity to get a master's.
I'm just trying to reward our people for being the best that they can be.
Well, yeah, and I'm just trying to make sure that we
the
get,
wording right, so
we
that,
get the wording
that's gonna be,
tricky.
I get it, cause there's nothing,
Yeah.
I mean, these certifications for mechanics are pretty cut and dry, you know exactly what that is.
Yeah, electricians and plumbers, you have apprentice, journeyman, and masters, so that's just cut and dry on that. The HVAC tech's gonna be your one that just doesn't have an actual called master, it's just called universal.
So does everybody already have that?
No.
Yeah.
There's only
You have to earn
maybe
that.
about 2 of them that's got the HVAC universal license.
Well, and that's the point, I'm trying to put in here
Yeah.
what people,
So-
like these mechanic things are earned things. And so we're looking for above and beyond is what we're trying to find out here. That's what I'm trying to find out.
I think Mr. Yeager could probably
I'm
resolve it.
I'm gonna amend my motion to include master electrician, master plumber, and universal
HVAC.
HVAC certification.
Is that 3 different items, like $1,000 for each?
Yes, if they would earn all
Yeah, I
three
mean,
of those.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think there
that's
would
what
be
I
3
wanted to-
different descriptions, so they'd just be like, why would the mechanic be allowed to do that and not the?
I agree, I just wanted to
I'm just
clarify.
talking about it, if that's the purpose.
And there's no, not to beat a dead horse here, but there are no other possibilities of upping their qualifications beside those 3. Those are the 3
I mean,
most
there
common.
probably could, but then you're starting to get into, like I said, sewer plant, you're getting into that gray area of.
That's what I mean. I mean, those are the
I mean,
main.
there's always, I could dig far enough to find all kind of licenses they could get.
No.
I mean, asbestos management planner and inspectors, I mean, you could find all kind of stuff, but I want to start.
We just need the main one.
Okay, we got that.
Yeah.
So
I
there,
think those are the 3 main ones.
so there
That's
is a
basically what the job titles, whenever they bid,
Yes.
is electrician or a plumber or.
yes, there is a motion on the floor to include, master electrician, master plumber, and universal HVAC to be able to receive a $1,000 supplement if they meet those qualifications. Is there a second to that amended motion?
I will second
It
again.
has been moved and properly seconded. Again, are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That amendment is also approved to this policy. Are there any other questions then, or amendment motions to this policy? And thank you for working through that with so many different areas on one single policy. It was tricky.
I just have one question. For the certifications, is that just a flat rate, or is that also based off of 200 days?
Everything's based off 200.
Every single thing on
That's-
here is based off of 200 days, so it just
Okay.
depends on how many days they're contracted to do. So yes, so
Okay.
theoretically, 1,000 really is not 1,000. That's, it's,
Well, I just wasn't
Yeah,
sure with the
yeah.
certification, if it was just a,
yeah, no, it's
Cut and
for
dry.
every single thing on the page. Not hearing any other questions, is there a motion now to the fully amended and designed policy?
Mr. President, I move that we accept on second reading, am I correct?
That is correct.
Second reading, policy GDBA, Wetzel County School Service Personnel County Supplement Schedule, to be effective July 1st, 2022.
Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that.
Has been moved and properly seconded. Again, no further questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The policy is approved on second reading. Thank you all for your diligence on that. And I appreciate the effort there. I'm not sure, education's challenged as far as trying to find qualified people to serve in roles that they can go out and earn better livings. And it's just hard. It's hard to know how to handle that. We're trying to resolve some problems there, maybe draw some interest for good employment. So let's hope that that's the result of that work. So thank you, everybody, for working through that diligently. The next item on our agenda, and I apologize, I'm pulling my phone out because I want to say it right. It's been a long day, a couple of days for me. And thank you all, by the way. For those who know what I'm saying, you understand that. I appreciate all your thoughts and prayers for my family the last month or so and in the last few days. Next item on our agenda is the board statement regarding superintendent evaluation. On May 25th, the Board of Education met to perform the annual superintendent evaluation. And by law, the evaluation is held in executive session. The board has concluded that Superintendent Wells has met or exceeded all standards. A healthy discussion concerning areas for improvement was held, and we look forward to seeing the progress that can be made within Wetzel County Schools. And that is the statutory responsibilities we have as it relates to that evaluation. The next item on our agenda is the discussion possible action on providing dental and optical for retirees. We had a presentation that was brought to us at our last board meeting as it relates to offering, I wouldn't say exactly what our employees have, but something similar to what our employees have as it relates to optical and dental through the same company that we're currently using. But because that was a presentation, we couldn't discuss and or have any action as it relates to that matter. So we asked that it be put on this month's agenda so that we could actually discuss it and potentially have action on that request to include our retirees and offer them a dental and optical plan. Are there any questions about that now that we can kind of be a little more open in discussion as it relates to that now that it's on the agenda?
Mr. Lang, is there anything you need to say?
Something that would need clarified, thank you, Mr. Yeager, is the premiums of the retirees would pay. Obviously, if the amount was zero, we don't have nearly enough money in the budget. So if we go on, I don't know what page it is, page 3, I think, maybe 4, of the recommended retiree premiums that American Benefit is recommending, then the estimated cost of that is about $30,000, which I have already placed in the budget for next year. So that's really the action that I would need to know is, are we going to go with the recommended retiree premiums if the board wants to enact this?
What's that gonna cost the individual?
Well, they have the rates here that the premiums, single dental would be $30 to $35. I'm not sure why it's $30 to $35. I'll have to work that out.
To have more than one tooth.
Yeah. Maybe. The single vision is $15 to $20. Family dental is $7. If you want family just dental, $70 to $75. Family vision only, $22 to $27. And single dental vision for both would be $45 to $55 a month. And family dental vision would be $92 to $102.
So what do you and Mrs. Wells recommend as far as what the board can afford?
I think we go with what
Yes.
American Benefit, who has done this for several counties, what they recommend. And that's, I really don't understand at this point what the difference is between why there's two different amounts there. Maybe it's because it varies from the different counties, so.
And it they may have to come back and actually look at their demographics and make a decision about where it actually falls.
Right.
I'd like to see it. I think it's a goodwill gesture towards folks who've served our county. I do think we need to take it slow, and not get ourselves in a bind where you're coming to the next board going, I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna have to ask you to move some money around because this costs us more than we thought. If we've already budgeted enough to cover, if we accept those premium packages, I'll cut to the chase. I'll move that we approve this dental and optical plan for retirees based on that Schedule C of the premium plan that was just read to us by Mr. Lancaster.
I'll second.
Are there any questions? Now, you feel free to ask your questions about that motion.
But it's kind of still leaving it with that, with either 30 or 35, right? I mean,
You're talking about the premium?
Yes.
Yeah, they'll have to come back and, yes, it could fall anywhere in that realm, in that range.
this is kind of a stupid, but that's per month, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Do we still keep track of addresses and all the information to let the retirees know about this?
We've got that, Mrs. Velez has already has that information, and I don't think we forwarded that information, we got it from the retirement board, so.
Okay,
We've got the information, and that'll get moved over to American Benefit, and they'll actually have a sample letter in here of what will go out.
so
to
they'll
those
send
employees.
that out?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions to the motion?
And my understanding will be that when the individual pays their premium, they're gonna be paying it directly to ABC.
They could do it either way, but I'm not looking for more
Work
We
on your
don't wanna
part.
be a collection agency, so.
Well, I
let's let
understand
them
that,
do
so
They'll
this-
handle it. They'll handle it.
This is all gonna be between individual A and ABC
And
Corporation.
ABC will charge us a fee for that.
And
Yes,
I
and
would
that's
like,
incorporated into the cost of the 30,000.
I would like to see, to make sure that it is sent out in packet form or something and not just electronically, because we have some people in our county that have been retired for
Many years.
many years that are not technology comfortable. And I think that we need to make sure that they can see
It
it.
doesn't
in
have to be
packet form.
many years, Mrs. Walker. It can be a few years.
I will request that.
Thank you.
Any other questions to the motion? It has been moved and properly seconded to approve the dental and optical plan based on the premium schedule noted. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is approved.
I want to thank the board and the administration for this. This is something I've wanted to see for a number of years. We have retired employees that can't even afford to replace their false teeth. I hate to say that. And this will help.
And this will also be effective July 1. That is correct. I think that's given, but.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if they don't pick it up right, the retiree doesn't pick it up right away, it's open, there's no like open enrollment.
I can't
You don't
answer
know
that
Okay.
right now.
Can we find that out so that we can,
I'm sure it'll be in the packet what the open enrollment schedule will be.
again, I just don't want them, somebody doesn't, some of us old people kind of forget things and come around to like September, October and say, go out.
But here's the other side of it.
Okay,
Well, I don't wanna pay the premium for 9 months. Well, now I just hurt my tooth, so are they gonna let me join now?
I
So,
understand exactly.
That has to be understood.
yes.
And that'll be between the
Right,
retirees.
yeah, this is all between the retiree and ABC.
Right.
We're just the,
Well, we'll
Offering a plan.
approve the policy or the plan that they have, which is their existing plan, but the
Yeah.
enrollment period will work.
well, like, somebody was retiring, or thinking about retiring, and they got that Mountaineer, whatever the one, retirees. And I said, why don't you hold off on that a little bit, because I said, I think you're gonna get a better
I've seen
plan.
it kind of hinted at.
Are there any board member committee reports tonight? I don't have anything. If policy will be taking a hiatus for a little while, I'm sure. I don't think, or is there something coming yet?
We're still working on the instructional section right now with some
Okay.
questions of different policies with the curriculum directors.
I got you.
Well, you-
And you're not allowed to leave the board since we don't have the policy stuff.
It's a real shame.
We'll bring it back every couple months for that.
Yeah, Mr. Katz.
we had the were you on the last?
I was
multi-
not.
Okay, and we had the monthly advisory, they're in the same boat down there that we are here as far as personnel,
Yeah.
they've got openings, they've got postings and everything. It is what it is.
Challenge. Challenge. All right, so no other committee reports. Anything under policy 2322 for us tonight?
We'll find out. Mrs. McPherson. Summer food, we're preparing to start that program. It'll start June 21st. It will be at 7 of our buildings: Longtree, New Martinsville School, Shortline School, 100, Magnolia, Hayden City High School, and Valley. And the times vary based on the school, and it will run through the middle of July for Shortline and through the end of July for the rest of the schools.
Do you have a good public relations to get out to let the people know about this?
We have, I've released the press release, I've sent that to the Chronicle, and I have also put it on our social media right now. So this is definitely the week to push. I believe there's also, there may be a phone number to text through the State Department, and might be up on their website as well. Usually they do something along those lines to show summer food across the country. Mr. Houston?
So I've been working on a strategic plan. Have most of the data inputted. Start finalizing, working on goals.
And the irony in that is some of that data is embargoed and we can't share that with
Yeah, I can't tell you. But
Right, but yeah, we can put it in the strategic plan, but yeah.
yeah, the sad thing is, I'd love to be able to tell you a few things, because I think there was some positives,
Yes.
you know?
We'll get an opportunity once they
Yeah.
lift it.
Yeah, but mainly my focus has been strategic plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Stanford?
I just had a really good day, summer academy today with Kennegan, 73 people. That was a great turnout, and I just appreciate everybody coming.
Is that a
It was a good
record?
day.
Is that a record?
I don't know.
That's amazing, that many instructional staff are engaged
Across the
in
county.
the same professional development based on instructional strategies. I mean, that's huge for the county.
Is that in New Martinsville School
Yes, it'll be tomorrow too.
tomorrow?
And then 3 days late July.
Okay. In case we wanna visit or see.
I think that would be nice if you could.
Where are they doing it, or where are you?
In the cafeteria in Martinsville.
Well, I know last year when we did a training, we had a training there that I came up for, it was well accepted, and
Very well.
it's probably why you have more now.
Depends what the weather's like tomorrow. If it's
Mrs.
raining
Lloyd.
like,
I don't have anything.
Okay. Mr. Doty?
New Martinsville School, the final piece of sidewalk will be poured tomorrow, so probably by the end of the week, they should finish that project. K1 roof, all the material showed up today, it's stocked on the roof, they're probably gonna start on that roof tomorrow. Magnolia High School sign, the foundation has all been pulled out, the electric has been moved, ready to go, waiting on them to come put the foundation in. Maple Avenue house is gone. It's down. They're got maybe 2 loads to haul out, and we're starting to backfill and decide what we're gonna do level-wise for a parking lot. Visited Hayden City Elementary today. All the demolition's done and the plumbing has started in the ceiling. So probably in the next 3 weeks, they're gonna start doing VAB boxes, and then after that, the ceiling will start going back up.
You don't have enough to do, Mr. Doty.
I did see, Mr. Doty, that they had the roof at New Martinsville for the K1 building.
Yes,
Being
yeah,
unloaded and
They
set
stopped
up
all
on
that
the
first
roof.
thing. They called me at 6:30 this morning, wanting to know
So it's
where
up.
everybody was at.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. McPherson?
I'll just say that the techs and myself to a lesser degree, because they do a lot of the heavy lifting on this, of the laptops, we've collected all of them, we've been through 1,300 of them inspected, where we check to see what's wrong with them so we can get them shipped off if they need repaired. We think right now we're ahead of other districts because we're getting stuff back in a hurry, so we're going 100 miles an hour so that we will have them back in time. And of those 1,300 that are inspected, there's 600 that the school started tomorrow we could issue. They've been cleaned, they're ready to go. Panhandle's gonna come pick up our cases and sanitize them like they do every year. We were doing that before it was cool. So they're coming this week to take care of that, and other than that, we're just head down and going on some projects.
Thank you. Mr. Burkus?
Mr. Price and I discussed the policy part. The other thing I can think of off the top of my head is this time of the year is a lot of the end of the year state reports. I'm sure I'm missing some, but working on those. They include attendance, enrollment, graduation rate, dropout rate, alternative education, homeschooling, McKinney-Vento, and discipline. So trying to wrap all those up and get those submitted.
Mr. Lancaster?
Just nothing other than June is a crazy time with the end of the fiscal year being June 30th. All the summer withheld pays need to be run, an additional payroll run to pick up everything, the extra pays, It's a busy time of year for us, and we got the staff to do it, so we're all right.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Mr. Doty and myself met with the student laborers today, did their orientation, got them placed out in the buildings. We are in need of kids from the Long Drain 100 area. We have no one from out there that's put in for it, so still trying to get some movement out there. Other than that, we got 10 kids, so numbers are down everywhere, but they seem pretty excited for the most part in the heat. And we brought out the tractors and the gear and showed them how to use everything, and got them on their way. So hopefully everything works out with that, and hopefully we get a couple more from out Long Drain 100 areas. So if not, thinking about gathering a few of them up once a week and vanning them up and taking them out and
That's a good idea.
putting them to work in those areas. So I'm not gonna make them drive out there as much as it costs, so that's where we are with that. Custodial testing Wednesday. Again, sent out several letters. Again, didn't get that many response. I don't get it, but that's where we are. So we'll be testing those guys on Wednesday and hopefully getting some more custodians approved and out there on the workforce soon. That's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. Board members, any other questions relates to those matters? Not hearing any then, with the date and time of the next meeting being June 27th at 6 o'clock, I would move for adjournment.
And I'll second that.
And as it's moved and properly seconded to adjourn the meeting, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 7:04.